Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda Cities ABC Open Business Council series. We are a fast-growing YouTube podcast thought leadership channel focused on profiling global leader inspiring people, CEOs, authors, technologists, academic and the global experts and personalities, and as well industry and business leaders changing and creating solutions for our world. We highlight especially platforms, ideas, thought leaders, and as well products and inventions or software or books that can actually look at particular challenges that we're facing today. But as well, we like to highlight especially how we deal with day-to-day, especially in a time where we are all facing a big global disruption that is probably the biggest since the Second World War with COVID-19, and as well how this is affecting the way we work, the way we collectively move as a society, and as well all the areas about digital transformation, and as well areas like the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course emerging technologies, and all the areas that come out of this. So these podcast series are produced and distributed on the citiesabc.com and openbusinesscouncil.org, and are syndicated in intelligenthq.com, fashionabc.org, edgethink.com, and tradersdna.com. And we're proud that we are actually close to 3 million views, actually next week or so. And as well, we are as well being having a small right now base as well in Spotify, and then Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, SoundCloud, and a lot of other platforms worldwide. So today I want to welcome Rhona Morrell, that is the founder of Coco Airlie Consulting, and since 2017. So Rhona works across global clients in FMCG, Apparel, NFP, and retail goods and brands. And what she does is delivering projects and relationship between creating a pace, tenacity, and integrity using her own words in terms of engaging specifically communities and ecosystems of business, and making a way of finding fun ways, ability to engage at the level of change management and all the areas where we have actually right now trying to do when it comes to business worldwide. One of the things that I want to highlight as well, Rhona started recently a podcast channel, the Rhona Morrell podcast. And this channel, using her own words, seeks to bring a no bullshit approach to business life, and will create as well interesting debates around many day-to-day challenges, which I think is particularly interesting. In her background, she's been working with big global brands like Red Bull Racing, Heineken, Epic Group, Neck Group, Poly Group, and so forth. So I welcome to our podcast series. I'm particularly interested to bridge all the different areas that have been working so far.
Oh, thank you for that amazing introduction, Dinis. And again, thank you for having me today. I'm really looking forward to this session.
The same here. So I want to start with, so you are British, but you work with a lot of global brands and global different cultures. And your work in consulting. Consulting is a lot about change management, a lot of work. I would like to start firstly with the cultural background. And I love, you're a great speaker as well, and a great communicator, and which is very difficult nowadays, especially when you do it remotely all over the world. Although we are both in the UK, but we have our team in multiple places in the world, and as well our clients wherever we can find them, but as well in a global world. So I would like to start. So from your background, education, especially the UK culture, which is completely different and very unique. Even me in London is different from the outside of London. So a bit of that background, and how did you come to be who you are right now?
Wow. I'll try and keep it short. Well, I followed the generic paths of college, university. And when I left there, I decided that I would travel the world for a year. And I think that was a foundation really of continuous itchy feet, but also that ability to always put yourself at risk, learn new ways, experience different cultures, and really kind of wakens you up to that small bubble you might live in your relevant country. So after sort of traveling, I then went on in a career with big companies, as you mentioned, the likes of Red Bull. I spent a decade there. And what was interesting there was that that was my first big job. And actually we were very thought-provoking. We were risk takers. We were creative. The energy and the culture there just seemed to marry the craziness of me. And I guess it set an absolute benchmark to how I believed cultures and organizations should work. From there, I went on to other businesses, and I guess it was quite a culture shock, actually, when you then go into an industry that is steeped in history and traditional boards, very kind of, I would say, archaic. And I guess I really struggled with that. And so for probably 5 or 6 years, I went through different businesses and ultimately came out with the conclusion that, and also having become a mother over that time as well, that there was a better way to do things. I think seeing many individuals frustrated in cultures, teams that just weren't working, people getting away with underperformance, I think all of those things, and the energy that I have, I just knew I had to go out on my own. And I guess over those years, I've traveled a lot. So whether that's out to Bali or gorilla trekking in Uganda, or all over the place, to just really immerse myself in what's important in life, and actually what we take for granted here, both professionally and personally, how that impacts when I've worked with clients, say in Hong Kong or Australia, India, etc. So fast forward to 2007, I turned to my husband and said, that's it, I'm done, I'm out. I'm going to go out on my own. I think he had a mild heart attack, but he had faith in me. And that was really the start of Coco Airlie Consulting. And that's actually the middle name of my 2 daughters. That's where the kind of name comes from. A lot of people think I own an airline. I'm like, no. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the work life that's given me, the ability to bound into a company and do what I do best, but not get bogged down into the politics and the emails and the meetings. And so far it's been hugely successful. And I think what that's allowed me to do is have a really broad aspect of how businesses work, not only in the UK, but also globally. And having been in marketing, commercial, innovation, supply chain, it's kind of that, I'm that 5 in 1, if that makes sense. I'm able to kind of bring that richness. And so the last 4 years have been incredible. Even this year, I have to say, I've taken many positives, but, I guess the biggest thing for me is that I think many people underestimate change management, and we talk about transformational change. And when you have a certain standard of the way things should work, the brilliant basics, you just assume that everyone kind of does that. And I'm realizing, I don't know why I'm surprised, but I'm realizing more and more that that's just not the case.
As someone that worked with these big brands, and some of them are really some of the major brands, both in terms of marketing, but as well in terms of a lot of global footprint and as well media outreach and so forth. How did you come back to create Coco Airlie Consulting, and how do you face this? Because being in consulting is not easy, and at the same time you have an expertise that is unique, but is the way you get into the companies and how you build that. So I'd like to understand that, because I think it's interesting for a lot of people in the world looking, because I think everyone right now will become a consulting. That's but very few people will understand to manage that, especially because there's no jobs for life anymore, and you have to be continuously building that. So I'd like to talk about that, and especially as well, what is Coco Airlie, because I know they're doing fantastic things with your organization.
Sure. Well, I guess it was going back to that time when I was actually caring for my grandfather, who had dementia at the time, and I was running quite a senior job, and as a mother of 2 and crazy dog and all these things that life threw at you, I just knew that I couldn't continue at that pace. Now, equally as the main breadwinner of the family, it was hugely scary for me to go, that's it, I'm done. But I knew if I didn't do that, my kind of physical and mental well-being was just getting worse. I was becoming a crap wife, an awful mom, and just everything. And I went, it's got to stop. And so there is a mindset with me that is, I have the 3 strike rule. It's put up and shut up, try and change it, or leave. And I've always lived by those principles. So I knew that I was at that stage where I was going to leave. And in the back of my head for years, I'd always dreamed about having my own business called Coco Airlie, and you know, the nod to my beautiful girls, and just making something that was my own. And so I couldn't moan at emails, I couldn't moan at people, I couldn't moan at cultures. It was all down to me. So the reason why I went out was for what I've just sort of explained, but I knew that I got 20 years experience with big companies. I'd had brilliant experiences and I'd had really bad ones. And I'm thankful for all of those bad ones, because when you're going through those tough times, that's when, you know, organizations and people really kind of dig deep and look at how they can improve. And so having that wealth of experience, I thought, you know what, surely I can do this. You know, worst case, I'll go stack shelves in Asda if I need to financially, but it's about having faith as a female and not listening to that mind talk, the devil and the angel on the shoulder, and, you know, come on, let's just go for it. So that was how Coco Airlie came about. In relation to what I did, I guess when I first started, it was a little bit like, oh, how do I package up everything that I know I can do? And I struggled with that. A lot of people would say, what do you do? And I would go, oh God. Okay, so here's the shopping list. So I decided very early on to stick to the things that I knew I was good at and avoid the things that I didn't. And I also wanted to maintain that I had a strong CSR agenda with the clients that I worked with. And that was important to me. And we'll probably come on to talk about my, you know, I'm a founding member at Ark2030 a little bit later, but and those were the principles. So I knew I was good at project management, change management, innovation, that ability to connect and network. And although anyone who knows me knows that I'm full of energy, rather quite sarcastic, typical British sort of humor, but I like to go at pace and get stuff done. So I thought, why are people employing people to do a job for a year when I could probably come in and do it? 3 or 4 months worth of work, set them up to success, and let them move forward. And really that's kind of what's happened over the last 4 years. A variation from transformational change in an apparel company to setting up a luxury lighting business for some Asian investors. And I soon became kind of an acting CEO for them for a year. And it's just, I like being scared, and I like the fact that being a consultant means you've got to be on top of your game, but also when you know you need to take a step back, you can do, and that's what I'm loving. So you kind of go in, have that energy, leave them in a better place, and then you can just take a step back, reboot, re-energize. I guess COVID's done that to a lot of us anyway. So yeah, that's kind of why the business came about. That's a little bit more about what I do. And I agree with you. Consulting is scary. And I guess through COVID, I've kind of been sitting there going, oh my God, everyone's becoming consultants. I'm never going to get work again. And you know, you start to panic, but it's just that mind talk again. It's telling yourself, no, you're good at what you do. You need to network, of course. Which is, I'll be brutally honest, something that I thoroughly enjoy. I just adore meeting people of all walks of life. And I don't care if you're a billionaire or, you know, you're the security guard at the office. You know, everyone's got an amazing story of resilience and character. So networking for me comes naturally. And I know for a lot of people, they absolutely hate it, but I spent many years in sales as well. So I guess it's easy enough for me.
No, and I think I think consulting is actually great. It's just the way you look at it. I don't, for instance, one of the things I love about, there's a quote from, or I quote a lot of the things from Brian Tracy, that is one of the biggest gurus of sales of the 20th century. And I think he's still 70 or 80 years old or close to that, and he's still very approachable. And one of the things he said is that if you see probably his first video is about how bad he was in sales until he became a consultant and he started creating a massive career. So I think it's a lot about personal development as well, and the way you look at our career. So I want to touch that because especially you mentioned you're an entrepreneur, female, which sometimes as well you have to manage your family, your children. And I respect that a lot, and it's not easy. But as well, what I've been finding out, and I want to touch that before we go to the work you've been doing, is I find that the challenge, even for me, is sometimes about your personal narrative. And I think that's the most important thing that I've been finding right now, is that our narratives are very negative, most of that. And as well, when it comes to be entrepreneur or getting out of the comfort zone, let's say we spend hours in television or in really stupid things, and we are afraid of going and talking with other people and creating value for these people. So I want to hear that part, because I think that fear is what makes us the hustlers, and that hustler in the good sense, and it can take us forward. But I'm particularly interested because I know that you have this positive energy as well and sense of humor. And I think and that's probably why you create as well your podcast, but how have you been doing this, especially from these big corporations to interacting with companies on your own and starting to build something?
You know what, I think it's a fair point. I think a lot of this is fear, and some people talk about, the modern day slavery of individuals tied to their mortgage, tied to a job, and that fear factor of, oh, but then who's going to put money in my pension, and I won't get a company car, and it's that just reliance that salary comes in every month. The negative to that is that a lot of people become quite relaxed, I would say lazy, and I just couldn't cope with that in a lot of organizations. And I knew that if I went to being a consultant, that energy and that fear I was going to harness into continually developing myself. And so I think we all do it, balancing the children. And I mean, my God, the number of messages you get from the schools, you need a PA just for that. So I think doing it on your own is really hard. And there is only me. I do have a virtual PA, actually. She's an amazing lady, Davina. And so when I'm super busy, I do ask her to come in and help me. But I find if you've got the right connection with people, and if I take the best bits from the cultures that I've experienced and the best processes, I can package those up and bring them to a client and say, look, this is how X does it. This is how Y does it. This is what goes really well. This is what goes really bad. But you also might want to consider the future technologies. Now, I don't personally claim to be huge in tech, but I think that continuous ability to learn and develop and expose yourself is critical. So for example, I've just joined a crypto and blockchain group on WhatsApp, and I did a podcast a couple of weeks with a guy who knows his stuff and I don't. So it was kind of like a blockchain for idiots for me. But I think it's that constant exposure to say, I don't understand. And I've been like that as a child. I'll always put my hand up and go, I don't get it. I don't understand. And I seek and I ask. Some would argue I put my heart on my sleeve and I'm too open and honest at times, but that's me. That's authenticity. And I think you can quickly tell when you're speaking to someone, engaging with someone, albeit virtually, whether someone's intentions are genuine, and if it's a company or a culture that you're going to really gel with and want to work with. So, I mean, my husband will often joke and sort of say, why don't you just stay in drinks and just stay doing marketing or commercial? I'm like, because it's boring. Like, I see the same stuff every day being pumped out by the agencies, and it's just tweaked slightly. And, I can't count the number of products that you see out there that is just, I take the classic Red Bull size can, how many thousands are out there now? And yes, steal with glee, absolutely. If there's a strategy that works, steal with glee. I'm all for that. But I just I feel like life is too boring if you keep doing the same thing. And I think with that mentality, that energy, that's how you bring that opportunity to a new client. You steal the best bits from others, you talk them through the bits that didn't work, and then you create that plan for them and moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that is the key thing, and that's what I admire about you. And I think, to be honest, we all have to have that. I think probably the point is that we're not trained in school, we're not focused, and I think our families tend to get us in a comfort zone. But the point is that this is the present of the work. It's not even the future; it is the present. And I think, especially with the COVID, we're going to have an increasing challenging to cope with all of these things. So I want to go right now precisely to change management, because this is about change management. So you've been working with change management with big brands, and now with your consulting company. Change management is key. It's key for all of us. We have to continue changing and creating strategies. But this is increasing more difficult, because normally, at least when you can meet face to face, you can see the body language, you can understand even the location, even how people, sometimes the way you dress, the way you move, you create a different interaction that online is very difficult. But now we're talking about, for instance, I was looking at a summit I was participating with people talking about the companies, let's say with 500 or even 1,000 employees, and managing everything online. For instance, in my case, we are close to 20 people, and it's still difficult because sometimes if you have someone from Singapore or someone from Africa, someone from Europe, just the way we speak, the way even the process, and this is massive, and this changes completely. Yeah. So I would like to hear your views about change in management, and of course, secondly, with all the challenges we're going through right now.
Sure. I guess the first thing that springs to mind is when you talk about, different cultures and locations of business, I am all about authenticity, but equally I know, the British humour and sarcasm doesn't necessarily go down well with everybody. So you have to be able to match and mirror your communication style with those people that you're working with. So for example, when I was running a team, and we had a team in Hong Kong, China and Mexico, it was okay in Mexico. They got my humor and that was fine. But that ability to not dumb down your character, but respect the way that they work, slowing down your communication, which is something that is really hard for someone like me, quite jazz hands and energy. And I think immersing yourself in their world, I once spent 6 hours in a palletizer in Italy, just so as I could understand exactly what it was these guys were going through, what their problems were, and what they faced every day. And I knew that everybody else sitting in their ivory tower would never do something like that. But I found that even if it's in my own time, if I immerse myself in their world, sit, listen, watch, observe, then ask the questions, that is so empowering, because whilst the senior team may think that their messages and their communications are getting through, actually by the time you get to the coalface, the people who are actually making this stuff happen either don't understand it or don't buy into it. So first and foremost, there's something there around how you are as a person, and how you communicate with people is critical to respect those differences and how you need to be. Working globally, I've been doing it for years. So when COVID happened and everyone was sort of saying, oh, we've got to go on Zoom, what's all this about? It kind of made me giggle in a way. But again, I think what I was able to prove was that I could set up a global business from my office in the middle of England for major investors and manage it around the world. And I think the positive from that was the environmental impact was great, because I wasn't flying all over the world. I was able to get stuff done at pace. We weren't constantly sat in meetings, and you were able to do things at much, much quicker than you were if you're waiting for these meetings and trying to fit into everyone's diaries. So I think what COVID's done has embraced that new work style movement and saying it's okay, actually, that you're not flying out to another country for every meeting. In fact, do you really need to do that anyway? I'm finding that the Zoom sessions that I'm involved in or that I manage need to be structured, and we keep it to time. This is what we're going to discuss. This is who's responsible. We follow up on the actions. And when the time's up, the time's up. So there's a lot around time management techniques, a lot around communication. And I think that I see the positive from COVID in the way we can work moving forward to be much more agile and less kind of archaic, personally.
I'm completely with you. And I think you touch a lot of different points that I agree. And I think you should write about it or do a couple of sessions about it, because it's really important. For instance, you mentioned about the process. And I think what I've been finding out, even as a CEO, I have two sides that are a bit schizophrenic, because one side is the thought leader, the other side is the CEO. And as a thought leader, it's very beautiful to speak, and you need to do your research and you get out with that research. But as a doer, that's the difficulty. And I think we have a big problem. I think it's probably the biggest problem that human civilization is facing, well, on the top of all the others, but especially in terms of work or the pace of work, is how do you cope with this kind of new process that we are creating? Firstly, because of technology. And secondly, of course, right now with the social distance and everything else, which even, let's say, even if things with the vaccination will be okay, nothing will be getting back to normal before end of next year, realistically. Yes. So we're talking about more 1 year of entire disruption. In some industries, going to destroy entire careers, entire personalities. We're talking about entertainment, music, film, and then, of course, massive industries like traveling, hospitality. So this is actually affecting people massive. But at the same time, we have this wonderful thing that you can actually do business and interact through these platforms. And the economy is not still collapsing. Even we are just redesigning the economy. So how do you see this part? And I know that you're very conscious, and you are as well the founder of the Ark organization. Let me see if I spell it correctly. Ark2030. That is a global UN organization focused on environment. So how do you see this part? In one end, we have environment challenges. In one end, we have society, organization, change management, which is your area of expertise. And in the other hand, we have all the digital disruption, which is massive. And ultimately, if you look at China, is right now already, so 15 years ago, they were an emerging country. Now they are the wealthiest country, and they are 15 years or 10 years already ahead of us. And this is words of Eric Schmidt. So how do you see this kind of nuance? Because people tend to drop in one and forget the others, or at least just pass this to some people like us, consultants. We are all consultants, and at least people like us. But the point is that in one end, consultants are more important than ever. In one end, people are afraid, but it's about the language and the dialectic. So I want to provoke you a bit on that.
Wow, there's three big buckets there, isn't there?
Yes.
There's the kind of what's going on with the world climate-wise. There's everybody, let's be honest, people need work, they need security, financial support. And whether your dream is to be the millionaire or is to just put food on the table and absolutely be happy. And then you've got this crazy digital world. And I think as a female entrepreneur, as a mother, as a friend, as a wife, I think for me, what COVID has done has actually shown where the world has rehealed itself and what happens when you stop. When you come to the digital and the scientific world, isn't it amazing that when you all around the world come together and focus on one clear objective, a vaccine for COVID, look what happens. Now, yes, we're not going to go into whether people trust it, it's 9 months in, whatever, but that's how I've always lived my philosophy with businesses. Having clear objectives that you all work towards. I cannot tell you the number of businesses that I have been to that have so many objectives and then a ton underneath them, and none of it marries up. And it's really easy as a consultant to come in and helicopter in, spend a bit of time in teams and realize that actually the reason why you're not moving forward is because no one really knows what's kind of happening here. I think in terms of the ability to stop, which is what we've all done in some degrees, is we've been able to reflect on who we are as people, what values are important to us, and what's our purpose in life. Now, you know, I'm not an expert in the world of CSR. However, I know that when I saw Ark2030 and I saw their audacious goals, we're going to do this in 10 years' time, and this is how we're going to do it. Step by step, this is how we'll do it. I went, right, that's where I'm putting my hearts, my energies, and I was delighted to become a founding member. That for me is making a choice in my life to do my bit to bring hopefully an end and to reverse climate change in 10 years. I don't really want to talk about 2050 or beyond, because frankly, I might not even be here in 10 years, but and running underneath all of that, it's like, even becoming a consultant and being independent, what impression am I leaving on my daughters? Are they looking up at a mom who they know takes risks, who is constantly learning new things, who travels quite a lot? And when it comes to tech, do you know what? They're teaching me. And how we embrace that, I try and do that both professionally and personally. So I'm always seeking out the questions of things I don't understand. And I often spend time with my eldest and go into her social world. So how are brands engaging with LinkedIn more now than they ever were, and TikTok? So that's going to continuously move. And I hope that my young children will help me go on that journey. But that's about me embracing it as well. You know, my father's very much doesn't want to know about Facebook, LinkedIn, couldn't care less. And I know I can't have that same attitude. And that's the same for businesses. You can't ignore these trends. You've got to be agile enough to take time out and come out of the depth and helicopter in again and have a look at what's going on. What opportunities are you missing? Where are your blockers in your business? And who are those blockers? It's normally people or process, let's be honest. So the ability to be multifunctional, to ask the right questions at the right time, and not be scared by change. That's the biggest thing. It's not that scary. It really, really isn't. And yeah, you might get it wrong, but you know what? That is okay. Just don't keep doing the same thing twice if you get it wrong. You know, take a step back and go, okay, this didn't work for us for the following reasons. We park that. How do we tweak it? It might just be a small little tweak as to why it didn't work, but don't be afraid of the change. I'm sure you've heard plenty of people going, it's just the way we've always done it. It's how the old boss used to do it. And you literally want to obviously I've never strangled a client, but you,
no, I understand.
But you know what I mean.
The change manager starts with change. And I think the problem is that we're not prepared for change. I think during the last five thousands of years of evolution, we've been just tailored to be, okay, we go to school, get out of school, get a job, and we work in this job. And even, for instance, I have that in my team, depends on the culture, but sometimes you get good in one thing and you get in this thing and you really cannot get out. And I have to sometimes to have very painful discussions with the team. And that's well, of course, I'm not even talking, for instance, I've been talking with even in this podcast, I've been interviewing some high profile global experts and leaders. And one of the things I've been finding out is the paradoxes is in terms of even the way you see things, but as well, the way you define change, because we need to start preparing people for change. And actually, I will just put a note because I want to highlight that in the channel. And I think it's particularly interesting for you as well. Is I remember that I interviewed another British personality, is a very high profile author, and I invited him initially to do a keynote speak in one of the organizations I was working, and he mentioned that we're going to have, this was actually 12 years ago or more, and he said we're going to have more disruption almost on a year base than ever in history of mankind. And when he said that, I was kind of okay. Was at the time we were getting out of the financial crisis, and I was saying, okay, this is already quite big. But
Yeah.
since then we
Slow
had,
down.
since then we had the UK the riots that probably people forgot it. We had another financial meltdown with all the fake news and things coming down. Brexit, now COVID-19. So effectively, we've been having almost on a year base this disruption, and this disruption
Yeah.
is changing everything. And I'm not even talking about AI and things like that. But well, I just want to put that note, and I liked what you said about change, because that's, for me, I'm actually learning myself how to change, because
Yeah.
I'm old and I have my children, but even I'm trying seeing them the way they learn in school. They want to be very good in one thing because it's their part, but I tell them maybe what you're learning is not going to be worthless, or is going to be worthless. And I know I don't want to tell that because they want to be good
No.
students and stuff like that. But it's important that they understand that we had to almost go to the boarding room and redesign everything. But well, yeah, it's a big thing. So this brings me to my next question, and as well is about, so you created the podcast, it's still in early stage, but yeah. I'm very, I love podcasts, and that's why I'm doing one as well. So tell us a bit about this podcast, and I know, and of course, count on me to promote it, and we're going to put the links and everything during this, but I think especially female entrepreneurs and female thought leaders is key. I have a daughter, and as well, I see as well the challenge we have, even speaking with our partners, like you mentioned, because we come from a culture, we come from another, or one family sees things in one way, sees another way. So this kind of talks for me are not just about listening to someone, but as well learning. I've been learning a lot, and it's been changing my life in a lot of ways. I'm very thankful to podcasts like Tim Ferriss and other people like him. So I want to hear about what's your special spot. I mentioned in the beginning, but as well how you want to leave that, because I think this is a great tool as well for engagement, for creating an audience, and as well to learn, but as well to create clients and business as well.
Yeah, so thank you. I again, back in the summer, and this is why I'm thankful for COVID in a way, I, for many years, have been that kind of ear, the person that, you know, people will go to talk to, because I don't just take one side of a story. And people say there's two sides to a story. Well, there's actually probably 50 sides to a story. There's emotions, there's body language, there's opinions, there's nature and nurture. And I think I work with the Prince's Trust here in the UK. So I've been a mentor for quite a few years now. And I guess over the years, people had sort of said, oh, you should do more of this, you know, you should chat and kind of put it out there. And again, you kind of allow that mind talk. And then I thought in the summer, no, do you know what? All the amazing podcasts that I hear, and I don't want to offend anyone right now, but it tends to be really loud and American, and can be just a little bit forced, a little bit cheesy. And I appreciate culturally that, you know, we all do things differently. So I thought, you know, stuff it. What I want to do is just bring a podcast out that gets amazing people, and we cut through the BS. We have an honest, frank conversation, and we try and bring, so in the first one, for example, I was interviewing Dean Stott, who's an ex-SAS. Now, for a lot of people thinking, oh God, well, I'm never going to be the SAS. How you know, how am I going to apply that? And so what I wanted to do was get great people and their stories and bring them into kind of Rhona's world, the real housewives of the Midlands, you know, the real world that we all live in, and say, okay, well, how could I apply that in my everyday business life or personal life? And that's what I try and do between the guest and me, obviously in my unique, you know, cheeky way. And like you've said, I think it was never the intention to be a biz dev kind of strategy. It was being able to connect with people at a time that was really troubling. Lots of people wanted to talk and were open to talk, which has been fantastic. And I think what I've noticed is that people, you know, open up quite easily with me as well. And there's a few little things that I've managed to tease out of people. And I just wanted to bring a podcast that I felt represented the everyday person, with guests who, some have got everyday stories and some have got incredible stories, and just have a bit of fun with it, you know, not take it too seriously, and show my side of my personality for those that, I don't know, unfortunately or fortunately haven't yet met me.
No, but that's what makes, I think, for instance, if you look at podcasts like Joe Rogan, wherever you like him or not, what makes him so special is this persistence, resilience, and continuation. And even PewDiePie, which is the biggest YouTube channel in the world, which is very silly, but in the end of the day, he built an audience because he engaged with people. And if you see that, I learned that through my students. So it's more about how we engage. So I think on that level, and I think moving to the next question I have here for you. So you are the founding member of Ark2030, and you mentioned a bit about that, but what is Ark2030 and how we work? Because I know that you work with very concrete initiatives, and I think that's very important, and I want to highlight as much as possible that, and you'll put as well links and highlight that with you in the interview and the different spots where you're going to syndicate.
Sure, and it's a pleasure to bring it to the discussion today, actually. So as I say, Ark2030, our chairman, Stephen Fern, has been working on this for many, many years. What he fundamentally did was he locked himself away in a room for a week, turned off the phone and decided, right, I'm sick of the kind of the arguing, the politics, the lack of action. What can we do? And what he decided and what he came up with, which is what he presented at the UN Decade of Change last year, was we need to restore 500 million hectares. That could be savannas, deserts, forests, coral reefs, to take us back to the pre-industrial revolution era. We know we've destroyed 320 million already, and we destroy about 20 million every year. So hence the 500 million. What he then did was say, okay, we'll take that 500 million and we'll just put it into little jigsaw pieces. And I absolutely thought, when I saw it, and I was following him for a while, I went, wow, I get this. I understand it. It's actionable. And a lot of it we can do without creating massive change to people's lives. It doesn't require, lots of voluntary work or corruption. And I guess I just thought, you know what, this is it. This is the one for me. This is the one I'm going to go for. I believe in it. I believe in the chairman. Ark2030 actually works with pretty much every single UN organisation and non-for-profits globally. And more recently, I have been leading the Global Coffee Initiative with Ark2030. It's super exciting. It's super simple. And really what we're saying to people or to organisations is, come on board. Buy your employees this reusable cup. This is actually by a brand called Topple, featured in GQ. And every time your employees go out and buy a coffee or a tea or hot chocolate, we will plant a tree using super cool technology with what 3 words. The employee will be able to actually see on their app, on their phone, on the Ark app, exactly where their tree's been planted in real time. And over the year and the decade, they'll be able to see the forest or the coral reef or the mangroves that they've developed. What the organisation gets out of it, of course, is all the CSR benefits that come with that. So the carbon footprint reduction, plastic lids, cups, you name it. So I've been working with them on that because I just think it's a no-brainer. It's so easy to do, doesn't require any change of behaviour. Yes, there's an investment from the organisation to start with, to purchase the cups. But my initiative alone within the Ark family, if we had 100 million people doing this by the end of 2022, we would regenerate 500 million hectares across the world. Now, for me, that's tangible, it's realistic. Why wouldn't I lead this project? And it's super exciting. So I've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, but again, it was that need and want to get involved in something that could actually make a difference and leave a legacy behind for not only my girls, but hopefully the environment and the ecosystems that we so desperately need.
Brilliant. This is very inspiring, and I'm as well involved with a couple of things with the United Nations. So can you tell just very practical things? So for instance, you mentioned coffee, which is a massive industry worldwide. Unfortunately, I love coffee, but I cannot drink it because I'm intolerant. So I always have a double standard because I love it. But it really creates a very big disruption on me. So in terms of practicalities, and as well, you're putting something as ambitious as this together, because this is something that I think most of people are conscious and they need this. But at the same time, sometimes we just are conscious, but we don't do much about it. So if you just can give like the roadmap of things they do, initiatives that people can listen and eventually engage and so forth.
Sure. I mean, if anyone wants to go out, I mean, I know you'll put the link on, but Ark2030 have their own app that anyone can download, and you can see all the restorative projects that we've got going on around the world. The Coffee Initiative, this is why I love working with investors and startups. It's one of those. Our chairman lives in Jersey. The founder of this patented cup at Topple happened to live in Jersey. They met, had a drink, they put 2 and 2 together, and actually that's what Ark2030 is so good at. It's kind of connecting the dots and then going, let's make this happen. So all this requires is for you to remember to take your cup to work, to the office. You can use it. If you're a caffeine addict and you go in 5 times a day, well, we'll still plant 5 trees. We know 2.4 billion cups of coffee alone are drank every single day. Now, I know a lot of that is in the home, but if we just take that small percentage, then add on the tea, we know that, we hope, should I say, that every time I go in and see my little forest being planted, one day I might go and visit it. The organisation itself, so let's say Coco Airlie employed, 1,000 people. The CSR agenda alone that they can claim by investing in these cups can actually achieve their green agenda for them if they don't have one, or it can complement their business as a part of employee engagement. So there's lots of opportunities there. And outside of that, within ARC, obviously, there's the 3C climate crisis funding. There is a really exciting kids element coming out soon. We've not yet launched that. But we are looking at the moment for early adopters. So big businesses, we've got some big names already that we're in discussion with, both from a company point of view, but also global participating coffee chains. Not in a position to obviously to mention names at the moment. And then early next year, January, February, we'll hopefully do a big PR launch with a couple of UN ambassadors. So if anyone wants to find out more about ARC, obviously please go online and have a wee nosy around. But certainly if anyone's interested in the Coffee Initiative, they can reach out to me anytime.
One of the things, so we touched a lot about change management, but like you said, there's a lot of different ways, like 50 ways of looking at things, which I think is a very good point. So with the advent of the 4th Industrial Revolution, and you mentioned the trying to look at the environment before the Industrial Revolution. So let's say, if you look at Sapiens, the book by Harari, and a lot of other research, I say until the first Industrial Revolution, humanity didn't change much. And with the first Industrial Revolution, we changed the entire planet. And since then, we had four revolutions. We are on the 4th, and now we are as well looking at concepts like the Society 5.0, where we have which is partly what you're doing, is a more human-centric society. Yep. And actually, the title of my new book is Society 5.0. But one of the things that I would like to ask, from your experience, so change management is going to be increasingly we are already using it right now to communicate here in Zoom. But in terms of the digital transformation, that is much more complex because it implies the way we use these tools and the way we manage processes, we manage different people around the world, that we even do HR, we do payments, we do interaction, we do track record of things and so forth. So we have a lot of legacy systems. We have a lot of contradiction. For instance, yesterday I lost 1 hour because one organization put one action against my company that was contradictory to another one. So I have to really literally find, but then we are in COVID, so none of them is speaking. So it's a complete nightmare. And this kind of details for an entrepreneur, for business people, for SMEs and startups around the world, which is the bread and butter of the economy worldwide, it's massive. Yeah. So how do you see this thing, especially with your work with big organizations that are right now in your consultant company?
I think my kind of focus has been that COVID gave a permission, and if people didn't take that opportunity, I personally think that they were crazy to kind of step back, and actually look at the intricacies of their people and processes within their organization. It's forced those that weren't willing to face change to change. Some have been incredible and have been, kind of stepping up every couple of months, and others are still digging their heels in and going, we'll come out of the other side of this. And I have absolute faith that humanity and that power of connection will come back. Be that from mentoring people, be it from recording podcasts and kind of doing as many networking as you can. You will never, through that digital era, I hope we can never lose that interactivity, the hugs, the passion, the humor of people. People fundamentally drive your business, and whether that's an individual or whether that's a team of 400,000 globally, you have to look after your people. Now, if that's providing them with systems that work, systems that talk together, and they all work towards that objective, you're going to have an exceptionally happy or happier workforce. I don't doubt that a lot of your listeners will remember a time, either if not now in their history of employment, they've all experienced it. They've all experienced these processes that don't work, systems that have just been forced on them. I remember being at a company where there was a global procurement policy, which meant that certain travel situations had to be done one way, and yet we all knew that one way was twice as expensive as the way that most people did it. But they were so adamant that it had to be that way that we were spending twice as much money. Now, you know what, in times of crisis, this is when we are looking at the bottom line. And if you can't trust your employees to simply book a train ticket, I've then got a question as an employee: do I want to work in this business? Do I want to be a part of this culture? And it also is a reflection on, if you don't trust your employees, well, why don't you? What are you willing to do to change? And digital technology can help us get more analytical. It can help us get closer to our consumers, our clients, and who we are, and it challenges us. However, it will never, ever take away, in my opinion, it will never, ever take away that need for the incredible warmth of the human being to make things happen and take things forward, change the world, or be it change the organization. If you're not willing to look at what's out there and carve out time for that, you will be left behind.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is going to be the biggest challenge for the next 10, 20 years, because I think there's the automation, there's robotics, and I think people will not get into this. They will, and that is the biggest probably challenge, because that is the change that you're going to be seeing and changing everything. And you mentioned the analytics, which is key, because if you don't have data about our companies, you cannot make decisions. And most of the companies have no data. They're not even digital. I always repeat this, but there's 430 million SMEs in the world. Most of them don't even have a website. So it's much more serious than that. So my last question, and I think we could go through that for 1 hour, but just one thing, and I know that you're a very positive person and very inspiring. So we've been touching about change management, environment, and as well work and the change parts of the work. So how do you see the present and future of work, and especially with COVID-19? We touched that, but as well, what ways can we make a better design of our companies, our organizations, and as well create a more positive message? Because I think in the end of the day, especially people like us that are supposed to be leading, we need as well to come up with solutions, not just criticize. So I think, and I know that you have that inspiring power.
I'm not sure I'm that inspiring, but I'll give it my best shot. I think, I'm someone has always embraced, I guess I've worked out on the field, in the car, and so never really had that kind of office job. However, I fundamentally believe in the work style movement. And as somebody who left big businesses because it wasn't working for me, I've carved that work style out for myself. What I'm appreciating of COVID is the recognition from big global companies that you can trust your employees. They can work from home. And you know what? If that individual puts on a wash load or gets up and walks the dog, that's fantastic. This is life. This is taking away their to-dos at the end of the day, which creates stress and pressure against their family. I think for us to, I'm really trying to be inspirational, but I guess I'm not. It's kind of in Rhona's own little way here. But I think diversity and inclusion must be a part of what we do. It is a no-brainer that we can all do things from home. Now, I know it doesn't work for a lot of people. They find it quite hard to motivate themselves. But I see that we will work to a more flexi environment. There'll be, unfortunately WeWork has obviously gone down, but that environment where you can pop up to a business, you be there for the critical meetings, the rest you're at home or you may be traveling. It's about that openness, trust, and companies have got to embrace that. This is what I would hate to find, is that this time next year we have a vaccine, we're in a better place, and businesses go back to their old ways. And that's the thing for me, that this is a genuine opportunity for you to just take time out and review what you've got. Is it working? Are your employees happy? Are you as an entrepreneur happy? And how can you embrace that uncomfortableness of not necessarily being in an office? The boss that walks in at 7 every morning and doesn't leave till 6:30, and then everyone feels pressured that they have to do the same. This isn't conducive to being agile, being much more proactive and driving a culture of change and innovation. If you don't, then unfortunately you will go back to the way it was, and you'll start to lose people. As people learn and people realize they can do more, they will start to leave you, and it's as simple as that.
Well, it's very inspiring, I think. And I think you touched the most important thing is about people as well. And we are all part of that. So I think we need to see, I always see it 2 ways. We are part of the solution. And I think I have my ups and downs, but one of the things I always say as well, and I think picking what you said, is that, okay, if we look at this in a way to solve it, of course there are some, I think especially when we have rigidity where people can actually not get out of their own comfort zone, and actually they are very intransigent, then there's nothing we can do. But I think if we listen to each other, we all can learn, and as well with our mistakes and failures. So Rhona, I have a lot of other things, but it's been a huge pleasure. We still made 1 hour. I appreciate your time and a lot of insights that come out of this, that we took notes, and I hope we will follow up, and I wish you a huge success both for your company, but as well for Ark2030, and that will be try to Ark2030, and as well for your podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dinis. It's been an absolute pleasure and great to connect with you again, and likewise, very best of wishes, and we will see each other for a coffee soon.
Cheers.
Actually, no, not coffee, tea. You can't have tea.
Coffee. I'll smell it.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.